Howdy, y'all. It's your favorite trainer with a belt buckle, helping you pass the NASM-CPT in 2023. Bosu balls, we got you covered. When you do pass it, make sure to read the book, How to Become a Successful Personal Trainer. Here's a sneak peek into our classes. We have live calls. You get to ask us questions. We review our study guide. We have a map that will help you pass it in 30 days. And when you do, make sure to send me a nice bottle of whiskey because I'm ready for that email. Now what? I have no idea what the hell to do because this doesn't teach me to be a trainer. That's where we come in. We have online classes, in-person weekend seminars. If you want to become a successful personal trainer, you got to show up. Let us know what you think of this call. Boom!
Read this blog today on chapter 7. So Jason was awarded our mentorship program. He passed his NASM and got into our SUF CPT, passed that, and now he's getting our mentorship program for free, which I teach Mondays and Thursdays, and we go into growing your book of business, teaching you how to optimize streams of revenue. 60-30-10 split is what we focus a lot on. And so I will go over these terms. So these are all in the study guide. It's just a different way to study. Now, if we were to go through the study guide, that would be just as efficient, but remember, these calls are good for you to ask questions and just get a different viewpoint on your studying. So these terms right here, what do I got? Marco, any of these terms that you're not familiar with?
No, I familiarized myself pretty well with everything, I would say, but contralateral, ipsilateral, and that's it.
All right. So medial is, think of your vastus medialis. That's your quad muscle. Is that muscle typically over or underactive?
I'm sorry?
Is your vastus medialis typically over or underactive?
I believe overactive, right?
Nope, that's the VMO. The VMO is always going to be underactive. Now, the vastus lateralis, that will be overactive. You have an anterior tibialis muscle. Is that typically over or underactive?
Let's hear. That would be overactive.
Underactive.
No? Okay.
So
See, I familiarize myself just where in the body it is, but as far as overactive and underactive with the words, not so much.
Okay, good. So we'll practice today because that's a huge portion of the exam. They're going to ask you, your client is performing the overhead squat assessment, and you notice that their heels come off the ground. Which of the following muscles would be underactive? And you need to be able to recognize that the overactive would be the gastroc and soleus on the backside. The anterior tibialis would be the underactive muscle. Your posterior deltoid, is that typically over or underactive?
So the posterior deltoid, that would be overactive for the upper cross syndrome, right?
So let's take a look at what upper cross is here. So these muscles are overactive. This pec major, anterior deltoids. So this muscle, posterior deltoid, will be lengthened or underactive.
I see.
Underactive, sternocleidomastoid, overactive, upper trapezius, overactive, pec major, overactive, latissimus dorsi, teres major, overactive. Underneath these, we have the deep cervical flexors, underactive, upper trapezius, overactive. You have the term proximal and distal. Proximal is the closest to the point of origin. Distal is the furthest away. Inferior would be below, superior would be above. So when we look at the textbook definitions for planes of motion, the textbook definition of transverse is an imaginary line separating the body from superior and inferior halves. Transverse. Which definition describes which of the following, I'm going to give a definition right here, which plane of motion does that describe? An imaginary line bisecting the body into right and left halves, only allowing for flexion and extension.
Sagittal.
Good. An imaginary line bisecting the body into anterior and posterior halves, only allowing for AB and adduction.
That would be frontal.
Good. So the terms contralateral and ipsilateral, think of a jumping jack. When I do a jumping jack, my humerus is abducting, my hip is abducting in the frontal plane. Same side of the body, same action, ipsilateral. Contralateral will be like sprinting. So when my left arm is flexed at the elbow as well as the humerus, the opposite joint is also flexed at the hip. Now, when it comes to speed, agility, and quickness, NASM may ask you a question on backside mechanics. Backside mechanics classified by triple extension. So your hip, if you think of that famous sprinting pose, you're here, your hip is extended, your knee is extended, and your plantar flexed. Whereas front side mechanics would be triple flexion. So those are good terms to memorize. These are the planes of motion that I just went over. Terms you may be asked: concentric, eccentric, isometric, and isokinetic. The terms concentric and eccentric fall under the umbrella of isotonic. Force is being produced. We have a shortening, which is concentric, and then a lengthening, which is eccentric. So, Marco, give me an example of the concentric portion during a pull-up.
Your biceps would be shortening.
When?
As you're pulling up.
Good. And then when you're coming down, what does that mean?
So as you're coming down, the biceps are eccentric, meaning they're lengthening.
Yeah, good. It's also referred to as the negative. And how about when we look at a squat? Which portion is concentric, going up or coming down?
Going up.
Good. And doing a push-up, which part is eccentric? Pushing away from the ground or coming down?
Coming down.
Good. When would you want to breathe out? Concentric or eccentric?
You would want to breathe out during the concentric.
According to NASM, that's correct. So you're doing a bench press, breathe out concentric, control eccentric. Now, if I was looking at the OPT model in the first phase, what is my tempo for stabilization?
So in the first phase, you want to go 4-2-1-1.
Good. And what is the tempo for phase 3?
Phase 3 would be hypertrophy. I believe it's the same thing, 4-2-1-1. If not, 2-0-2-0. So
on the exam, if they had the answer 4-2-1-1 and 2-0-2-0, which one would you choose?
Yeah, I would go 2-0-2-0.
Good. That would be the right answer. Now, if you were to be doing phase 5 is unique because they're supersets. Can you give an example of a phase 5 superset?
So you would go squats and ice skaters.
Good. Now, can you give me an example of another superset, and where is it in the OPT model? Which phase?
You can go phase 4, which would be maximum strength, and that would be squats with tuck jumps.
You're correct. That is a superset, but that's still phase 5. So phase 4 is just a straight set. It's just heavy bench press, heavy squat. That's going to be the intensity of 85 to 100%, 1 to 5 reps, 2 to 5 minutes rest.
Okay.
Which other phase? So stabilization, we're not doing supersets. Phase 5 is max strength. Phase 4 is max strength. Phase 5 is power. What's the phase that has?
Phase 3 would be hypertrophy, bench press followed by push-up.
Again, correct on the phase, yes, but phase 2 is where we have the supersets. So phase 1, stabilization, that's our 4-2-1-1, 12 to 20 reps. Graduate after a month, we go to phase 2, which is supersets. That would be a bench press into a push-up, a squat into a step-up, a pull-up into a TRX row. That's the superset there. Then you go into hypertrophy, 0 to 60 seconds rest, 6 to 12 reps, 2-0-2-0. After a month, you go into phase 4. 4 is going to be 1 to 5 reps, longer rest periods. And then phase 5 is when we have those supersets again. Now, isometric is an example of a plank. And NASM calls a plank prone iso ab. So that's when you do that in phase 1. Phase 2, 3, and 4 for an abdominal exercise, that would be like doing a crunch or some type of reverse curl, something where the spine is moving. And then when you have some type of explosiveness, that would be phase 5. There's 3 parts of the OPT model: stabilization, strength, and power. Strength has 2, 3, and 4 phases. So think of when we look at movement from a NASM paradigm, it's going to be essentially red light, green light, yellow light. So easy, moderate, advanced. So green light is going to be super easy. It's not going to be that challenging. Balance. You're going to be standing on one leg, no movement. For an ab exercise, you'll be doing a plank, no movement. When you graduate into the yellow or the intermediate, for a balance exercise, there would be movement. For an ab exercise, there would be movement of the spine. We graduate to the red, which would be advanced. It's going to be a throw, explosive throw, a bound, or something along those lines, some type of rotation powerfully. And then it's a good term to flashcard, isokinetic, because they could throw that in there. Which of the following is defined as the speed of movement that fixed? The movement is fixed, and it's a sophisticated type of training equipment that's used in the exercise physiology lab. You may see exercise phys lab on another question as well about body fat percentage, and they could ask about your DEXA, hydrostatic, or your bod pod. And those are going to be body fat testing measurements that will be in a facility. As trainers, we're probably going to be using the calipers. And what are the 4 sites that you would use for calipers?
So you would go bicep, tricep, waist, and hips.
Good. Biceps, triceps, yes. So when you say waist, just remember it's called the suprailiac. And then it wouldn't be your hip, it's going to be your back, your subscapularis. So your subscapularis would be a diagonal fold, whereas the bicep and the tricep would be vertical folds. How do we feel with the agonists, synergists, and stabilizers for movement?
Pretty good.
Okay, so let's see how well we do. Now, if you comment on these, like I said, we give little prizes, so let us know what you think. This was study harder or study smarter, focus on the guide, we'll get through it, promise. So here's